Today's particular block of chapters are fascinating in many ways and at many levels. Initially, let's take a 30,000-foot overview of what's going on in chapters 1 through 5. So what we have is roughly 400 AD. It's sometime after 401 AD when Moroni is doing this work, sometime between 401 and 421 AD. So here he is. He then takes us back in time to something pre-2000 BC with the story of the Jaredites leaving the Tower of Babel, sometime millennia before Moroni's writing. And he's going to tell you the initial part of their story in chapter 1, 2, 3, and then the brother of Jared coming down off the mountain with chapter 4. It ends. Then in chapter 5, Moroni comes here and he looks forward to the latter-day translator of the work that he's producing, Joseph Smith, in the 1820s, and he writes kind of a personal letter to him in chapter 5. You could label chapter 5, Dear Joseph, Love Moroni, because he seems to be talking directly to him and then also, by extension, later on in that chapter, to all of us. So if you look at the spread from more than 2,000 years before Christ to almost 2,000 years after Christ, today's block of Scripture, it's covering a long period of time. So let's jump in to the beginning of the story with him going back in time to the Jaredites. And what you'll notice, you're so excited to jump into this new book, and the very first thing he does is he gives you a long list of 30 names. 30 Jaredite names, beginning with Ether in verse 6, and then going all the way back in time to verse 32 until you get to Jared. 30 names. Okay, now watch what happens. He gives you those names, and then the whole rest of the book of Ether is him telling you the story of each one of these people in reverse order. It's a chiasmus that we talked about before with Jack Welch here from Alma 36. The entire book is set up in this chiastic organizational structure using the names of these people. And the fascinating thing is he never skips a single name, never gets anything out of order. He gives you the names and then perfectly tells you their story in reverse order with a lot of emphasis up front on Jared and his brother. All right, so we pick up our story at the Great Tower where the languages are confounded, and you get this fun little interaction between Jared and his brother beginning in verse 34 of chapter 1. Notice the description of the brother of Jared. He was a large and a mighty man, a man highly favored of the Lord. So Jared said unto him, Cry unto the Lord that he will not confound us, that we may not understand our words. So Jared goes and asks the brother of Jared, who is highly favored of the Lord, to make this request. He makes the request, and the Lord says, okay, granted. Your language isn't going to be confounded, at which point Jared comes back to him and says, okay, now go and ask him if he'll do the same thing for our friends and family, if he won't confound their language. So the brother of Jared goes, and he does that. And the Lord responds, at which point Jared says, now go and ask him in verse 38, if he will drive us out of the land. And if he will, ask him where we will go, if he's got a different land prepared for us.